This has truly been a day for the ages. For Helldivers, for ODST, for Xbox, but also for gaming. From a 4 a.m. Xbox launch over to the new ODST Warbond, record-setting player counts, new players psyched up to get torn to shreds in their first missions, and how about everything we learned will be hitting the game next week? Yeah, it's been one of those days that highlights why we gamers love to game and why Helldivers love to dive. In case you're new here, please consider helping out the channel by hitting subscribe and ringing the notifications bell. We've got a ton of new info to get through, so let's dive on in. Finally, someone decided to cover one of the main bylines for today's cross-platform launch for Helldivers 2. Justin Joy of comicbook.com starts off today's video like this. Today represents a bright future for gaming. Exclusive has a new meaning in the gaming industry. August 26th, 2025 will go down in history as a day that gaming changed forever, at least for two brands. It marks the launch of Helldivers 2 on Xbox Series X and S and Gears of War Reloaded on PlayStation 5. As Microsoft and Sony swap games that were once exclusive to each respective platform, one has to wonder what is next for the gaming industry. While Microsoft has brought its games to PlayStation already, this marks the first time that Sony has released one of its major exclusives on an Xbox console. But today is more than that, as this is the biggest franchise Microsoft has ported to PlayStation yet. Helldivers 2 is a more recent release, and while it has been a huge hit, it cannot compare to the impact that Gears of War has had on gaming. Initially released in 2006, Gears of War became one of the icons of gaming and a mascot for Xbox. It would go on to reach levels of popularity rivaling Halo. Its release signals a big change for exclusivity in the gaming industry and may lead to even more major exclusives being released on new platforms. Further in, Joy continues on and writes, "But the gaming landscape has shifted. The boundaries of exclusives have blurred as Sony has released Horizon Zero Dawn and The Last of Us on PC. Microsoft upped the ante as it has ported its exclusives directly to PlayStation and Nintendo. Sea of Thieves, Grounded, and even Forza Horizon 5 have come to Xbox rivals and have largely been successful. Recently, nearly half of the best-selling games on PS5 were from Xbox studios." What's surprising is that even Nintendo has branched out by releasing titles on mobile platforms, so while exclusivity isn't disappearing, it is evolving. I love the way he words that, by the way. The industry is less divided by consoles now than it has ever been as the future shifts. Crossplay has become a staple among multi-platform games as the console wars fade and developers redefine what an exclusive title actually should be. Regardless of the reasons, this is a huge win for players. As games release on more platforms, they can reach a wider audience. This not only lets players enjoy games they normally wouldn't be able to, but it also makes the player base larger, an important factor for multiplayer titles that rely on the health of the community in order to maintain support. Xbox's willingness to release its games on new platforms is leading the way and could set a new precedent. Microsoft is adopting a new message. It isn't about what console sits under your TV. It's about bringing experiences to as many players as possible. Now, I've said that time and time again in so many of my past videos, and I'm not alone in that sentiment. As gamers, we just want great games without all the exclusivity BS. And today was a monumental first step in bridging that divide from PlayStation over to Xbox over to PC, because as of 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on August 26th, we are now all officially known just as Helldivers. I'll leave a link to this article down in the video description because there are some parts of this I left out, mainly because they dove heavily into Nintendo and cross-plat titles, but it's definitely an interesting read, so click on the link and check it out for yourselves, because we next need to dive into this morning and also into this afternoon. The hype for Team Green going live, along with the go live itself for the ODST Warbond, has seen absolutely stratospheric levels of hype and has pushed into all areas of Helldivers. So first up, I was up bright and early at 4 a.m. this morning to greet our new Xbox recruits over in my Discord, And from there, the player counts have climbed consistently and are still trending upwards. Now, as of the time of this recording, the Helldiver companion app is showing 250,000 divers now all logged on across all 3 platforms and putting in work spreading managed democracy. The splits here may surprise you though, because of those 250,000 players, 117,384 were on Steam PC. So whereas we are used to seeing a 75-25 split from PC to PlayStation, with today's numbers, we're seeing close to a 50-50 split now between console together and PC. On a side note, as Xbox gained access into the game and started logging in, we've seen a massive spike in divers taking on the Illuminate, which is also not the norm. So you Team Green ODSTers seem to really want to continue your battles with the Covenant. Anyways, where this gets even more interesting is when we dive into the Steam sales figures for Helldivers, and if you didn't think Warbonds, especially well-known collaboration Warbonds, would drive up sales, allow me to introduce you to the Steam Top Sellers 100 list, which is not based on copies sold, but rather dollars generated. Sitting at the top of this list is, you guessed it, Helldivers 2. So not only is the game selling copies, but I would wager that the ODST Warbond has sold very well and has driven the game to #1 on Steam. But we're not done yet, because if you take a look down at 13th place, there's Helldivers again, this time with its Super Citizen Edition. So yeah, that's right, Helldivers has 2 editions of the game sitting in the Steam Top 15, and of course is currently numero uno, which is a studio you know they've got to love seeing that happen with their passion project, Helldivers. What about the ODST Warbond though? I mean, we've seen it selling well, but how are those new weapons and armor? Well, I did get in some action on Super Helldive difficulty using all the new gear, and I do have some thoughts on every piece, but before we dive into that, here's the stat highlights without going too much into the specifics. The AR came out with 80 base damage, 32 rounds in a mag, and of course its medium armor pen. The SMG, 70 base damage, 48 rounds, light armor pen, and one-handed. The M90A shotgun came out with, 605 base damage, 6 rounds, and light armor pen. And the SOCOM pistol was 100 damage, 12 rounds, and of course light armor pen. Also, the armors came out as advertised. Both are medium sets, no alts are available in the Superstore, and the Feet First armor passive was 50% less noise when moving. Of course, we got the extras, 30% extra POI range identification, and you are indeed immune to your legs breaking. This will definitely be an interesting topic for chat, as in, how are you personally feeling about the new weapons and armor sets? You know, the pros and cons, that sort of thing. And we know that Arrowhead does read these video comment sections, so if you have constructive feedback, please drop a comment on this video. Now, for the AR, I've got to say, for me, in general, I'm not a big medium armor pen AR user. I like light armor pen, faster firing, where I can just shoot and shoot and shoot. But, you know, overall, I found the MA5C effective. At least to me, it felt like a faster firing adjudicator with a little less base damage and about the same amount of ammo. Also, it was more stable than the Judy, which I do like. The SMG was very easy to use, which I could also say for the shotgun and pistol. But overall, I would say this is a good start for these ODST weapons, but there needs to be some adjustments to damage and ammo, at least in my personal opinion. Now, since we can't modify these weapons, we will need Arrowhead to make the changes on their sides. For instance, maybe take the MA5C up to 45 rounds, because overall it has less base damage than the adjudicator, but you know, with more ammo, it would kind of balance out what it can do in terms of damage output. I also love the look of the ODST armor, but we're going to need more testing to see just how much effect this 50% less noise has on enemy detection. That said, I did like being immune to having my legs break after suffering catastrophic damage. So yeah, good start. But I'd like to see some tweaks to make these items more competitive with current weapons and gear that we already have in the game. But again, those are just some of my preliminary thoughts on the Warbond, and please drop a comment with your ideas and thoughts about it as well, because we next need to move over to the future of Helldivers, and Arrowhead dropped a 7+ minute trailer on us this morning that kind of came out of the blue and has the player base super energized. And when the news went out about not only the new Warbond coming out next week, but also the massive new Into the Unjust content update, I gotta tell you, I was stunned. And for those of you who watched my reaction video, you probably heard as much. So yeah, we might as well start at the top. The Helldivers have seen enough of bugs shredding our planets and megacities and are now hellbent on taking the fight to the enemy's doorstep. So we are headed directly into the heart of the Terminid gloom. These planets have been twisted and terraformed into massive bug colonies and structures, which brings us to one of the 2 brand new missions, as the Helldivers will be channeling their inner rock and stone, and we're going to be headed underground to finally fight it out in tunnels and caverns, which is crazy to think about because we've seen it hinted at time and time again, and it is a player requested feature. And next week, we're finally going to be able to do it. Now, when we go underground, we're going to be tasked with destroying the Spore Lung, which is some sort of living, breathing bug apparatus. So definitely bring a hell bomb along or some serious ordnance. Also, while fighting through the caves, we will not have access to our super destroyers and therefore no stratagems until we reach breaks in the caves where we have line of sight with the sky and then can call in those valuable strats. Also, certain areas of the caves are insanely dark, requiring the use of a flashlight or 2 or 3. The other new mission involves the Helldivers escorting a mobile oil rig that we will be responsible for piloting ourselves to the drill sites, and also it has a controllable cannon mounted on top to stave off enemy attacks. So yeah, overall, really great to hear about a new biome, and those 2 new missions sound like nothing we have ever been asked to do before in the game. How about new enemies, you ask? Yeah, we've got those too, including a flying bile roach, but let's actually call it what it is. It's a bile titan dragon. Can you say dragonborn? And there's new burrowing enemy variants of the warriors, bile spewers, and chargers, so these things will be able to get under the surface and come after us Helldivers, along with a yet unseen massive terror underground that stirred up a ton of hype during the trailer, with many saying it is the return of the Hive Lord. But hold on, because we still aren't done with the new reveals, because Arrowhead also dropped a bunch of new info about our next premium Warbond dropping next week, called Dust Devils, which is definitely Dune-inspired.
Listen again!
Now, this is also packed with firsts for the Helldivers, like our first assault rifle that features incendiary rounds along with medium armor pen, our first cluster frag grenade, a freaking spear gun that fires heavy-duty projectiles that release a cloud of gas on impact. We're going to get expendable eats, but these feature a napalm strike along with a super cool new stratagem called the Solo Silo. Now, this thing looks crazy because we get to call it down from the super destroyer, and it comes down with a Hellpod-sized missile and a handheld targeting remote. That's right. You're going to get to laze your targets and then fire off this missile, which looks like a mini ICBM as it comes raining down from above. Of course, there's new armors in here as well that look solder car inspired, along with new cosmetics and the normal extras we are accustomed to seeing in a Helldivers Premium Warbond. Now, this Warbond looks like it will be something else, and I mean that in a good way. And before I forget it, I wanted to mention all of this drops next week on September 2nd. So, let me check this over. We talked about the Xbox launch, which I just checked on again, and Helldivers is now showing 294,000 players across all 3 platforms. We talked about the ODST Warbond, the whole Into the Unjust new content update, the premium Warbond coming next week called Dust Devils, and I think that just about wraps it up, except for one final topic. That being the game itself, and more specifically, how it all kind of went down today. Now, I know there were a lot of people out there that thought Xbox coming to Helldivers wouldn't amount to much more than 15 to 25,000 additional players. They were wrong. There were some rather loud voices out there as well predicting that once Arrowhead flicked the Go Live Xbox switch, all hell was going to break loose. It was going to be launch week 2.0. That didn't happen. And I know there were some issues with getting the Warbond tokens out to people that had bought them, which they did fix along with a few other minor launch issues. But overall, what could have been a day of nothing but drama has actually turned into the second highest player counts the game has seen since launch back in 2024. Now, I've been receiving little DMs and posts all day from new players who are finally getting their first taste of actual Helldivers gameplay, and they are simply loving it. And again, welcome to all of our new recruits, and also welcome Team Green. But I will say this, what you are seeing this week and next is the exception, it's not the norm. Arrowhead has also said as much. We don't normally see a Warbond coupled with a full-on platform release being added into the game, and then a massive content update following up that the next week along with a new Warbond. But damn, it is awesome to see, right? Now between today and next week, we also really need a performance and bug fix update. The game is suffering, and I would love to see Arrowhead take that critical feedback to heart on those ODST weapons and gear. You know, with just a little push here and a tweak there, they will have a more lasting series of weapons and armor added into the game, and hopefully they can get that installed next week. But yeah, so much for you guys to comment on today. ODST, Xbox launching into Helldivers for a truly historic day in gaming history. Into the Unjust, that new content update dropping next week. Hive Lords, Flying Bile Titans, Caves, and oil drilling missions. And if that wasn't enough, the Dune-inspired Dust Devils Warbond is also dropping next week as well. Any and all of that are topics that are definitely worth discussing, and I encourage you to drop a comment down below. Remember to hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to never miss one of my future upload alerts. Thanks so much to all of our current channel members, and until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.